things like that, like things you would never think of, crazy stuff. We said yes a lot to mostly everything and everywhere.
They weren't just bandmates. They were like blood brothers in leather jackets, riding the wild wave of rock from gritty Jersey bars to the biggest stages on Earth. But somewhere between all the screaming fans and Diamond Records, the bond cracked, and Richie Sambora, he's finally ready to talk. After years of silence, he's telling us what really happened behind the smiles and those thunderous guitar solos. What did Jon Bon Jovi not say when Richie walked away? Why did this legendary duo become strangers instead of reuniting legends? This isn't just about fame. It's something much deeper. And once you hear Richie's side, you'll never hear those classic anthems the same way again. The brotherhood that rock built. Long before the bright lights, Richie Sambora and Jon Bon Jovi were just two Jersey guys with big dreams and callous fingers from playing night after night in New Jersey's underground rock scene. Richie came from Woodbridge. Jon was from Sayreville. Their towns were working class and tough. Just like them, Jon was in a band called the Wild Ones. Richie bounced between bands like Message. They played in dusty clubs, old community halls, and backyard parties, places where the amps buzzed louder than the crowds. But what brought them together wasn't just their hustle. It was a love for musical legends like Bruce Springsteen and the raw power of Led Zeppelin. When Richie officially joined Bon Jovi in 1983, everything changed. He didn't just join the band, he transformed it. His bluesy sound and emotional guitar playing gave the band a soul it didn't have before. And his chemistry with Jon? Unmatched. In clubs like the Fast Lane in Asbury Park, their connection lit up the stage. Richie brought harmony, depth, and feeling. Jon brought the power. Together, they created something that felt massive, but still personal. Richie wasn't just playing along. He was co-creating the hits we still sing today. That unforgettable talk box solo in Living on a Prayer, the dark guitar lines in Wanted Dead or Alive, the raw emotion in I'll Be There For You. That was Richie put his heart into every note. Off stage, the band was just as tight. Laughter backstage, goofy grins, late night talks. It all painted a picture of two brothers holding each other up through the chaos of fame. But deep inside that bond, a quiet divide had already started to grow. Even in their strongest moments, Jon was being pushed, or maybe even chosen, as the face of the band. Richie, despite co-writing huge hits and shaping the band's sound, stayed just outside the center spotlight. He was a grounding force, the emotional counterweight to Jon's bold stage presence. Still, in those early years, it wasn't just about songs. It was about brotherhood. Two guys from Jersey who struck gold and held on tight. But while their bond grew stronger on the surface, something even more powerful was brewing in the shadows. The soul behind the strings. By the mid-'80s, Bon Jovi had found its sound, and Richie Sambora was the one shaping it from the inside out. He wasn't just shredding solos. He was building emotion with every riff. While other bands chased flashy guitar tricks, Richie brought feeling. His blues-based style, mixed with big arena energy, gave the band a voice beyond just vocals. His guitar didn't just fill space. It told stories. In the studio and on stage, Richie had a rare gift. He knew exactly when to explode with sound and when to hold back. His solos weren't just fast, they meant something. Albums like Slippery, When Wet, and New Jersey didn't just sound good, they felt good. And behind every one of those feelings was Richie's careful touch. Songs like Never Say Goodbye and I'll Be There For You weren't just romantic ballads. They were built on Richie's guitar work, layered with emotion that cut deep. His harmonies with Jon turned choruses into anthems that made crowds scream and cry all at once. He wasn't just backing up Jon. He was completing the emotional structure of every song. What made Richie special wasn't just talent. It was his instincts. He felt the music in a way that couldn't be taught. When to echo Jon's voice, when to let the guitar cry out, when to pause and let silence say it all. He added texture and mood that made the band's biggest hits unforgettable. Bon Jovi might have had the look and the swagger, but Richie gave him a heartbeat. Critics and fans alike know Richie was the heart of the band's sound. But while Jon stood front and center, Richie stood behind the curtain, quiet, powerful, and always delivering. That famous talkbox solo in Living on a Prayer, It wasn't just cool, it was iconic. It proved the band wasn't just style, they had soul. And Richie's guitar made sure of that. Even now, his riffs still power those classic tracks. Every time you hear them, remember, behind every great frontman is someone with strings and soul holding the whole thing together. The cracks beneath the glory. But while the fans saw stadium lights and roaring crowds, something darker was happening behind the scenes. As Bon Jovi exploded into one of the biggest bands in the world, the spotlight started to shift. From the late 80s through the 2000s, Jon Bon Jovi wasn't just a lead singer. He became the face of everything. Photos, interviews, promotions, decisions. Slowly, the band began to revolve around him. Richie, who helped build the band's biggest moments, suddenly found himself out of the loop. Creative choices were made without his voice. Branding decisions moved forward without his input. It wasn't just business, it was personal. A silent power shift was happening, and Richie felt it, loud and clear. They weren't just bandmates. They were brothers in boots. From sweaty Jersey bars to sold-out stadiums around the world, Jon Bon Jovi and Richie Sambora were unstoppable. But somewhere along the way, something cracked. And now, after years of silence, Richie Sambora is finally telling a side of the story. And once you hear it, you'll never hear those classic Bon Jovi songs the same way again. Before the money, the fame, the arena lights, Jon and Richie were two hungry kids grinding it out in New Jersey. Jon Bon Jovi from Sayreville, Richie Sambora from Woodbridge, two small-town dreamers, chasing something bigger than themselves. When Richie joined Bon Jovi in 1983, everything changed. His guitar didn't just add sound, it added soul. From the talk box on Living on a Prayer to the aching strings of I'll Be There For You, Richie defined Bon Jovi's sound. He wasn't a backup guy, he was a co-pilot. The emotional heartbeat of the band. Together, they were magic. Their bond, unshakable. Until it wasn't. As Bon Jovi's fame exploded, something started to change behind the scenes. Jon wasn't just a lead singer, he became the brand. And Richie, slowly, quietly, he was pushed to the background. At first, it was subtle. Less say in decisions, less input on songs. But over time, that silence became deafening. Even though he was in the room, it felt like his voice didn't matter. Richie once said, "Being there physically doesn't mean you're being heard." And while the fans saw a united front on stage, backstage, it was a different story. Behind the guitar solos and flashing lights, Richie was dealing with real life, addiction, a painful divorce, emotional burnout. And through it all, the band that once felt like home didn't anymore. He tried, he stayed, he kept touring, writing, showing up. But the warmth, the brotherhood, gone. He felt like a ghost in his own band, outnumbered, overlooked, erased. Then came April 2013. Just hours before Bon Jovi's show in Calgary, the bombshell dropped. Richie Sambora, gone. No warning, no farewell. Just a vague, personal reasons statement from the band. Fans were stunned. Speculation exploded. Where was Richie? Was he okay? What they didn't know was that behind the scenes, Richie had reached his breaking point. The touring, the tension, the feeling of being replaced. And the final blow? He found out online that Jon had replaced it with another guitarist. Phil X. No call, no text, not even a goodbye. In Richie's words, it was like I disappeared. And nobody even called. In the years that followed, Richie stayed quiet. But in 2024, he finally spoke out. In a powerful interview, he revealed the real reason he walked away. His daughter, Ava, she was growing up, and I was always on the road, he said. I didn't want to be a ghost in her life. Richie realized he had to choose, rock star or father. And for him, there was no contest. You don't get those years back. It wasn't about ego. It wasn't about money. It was about being there for the person who needed him most. Some fans were furious. They accused Richie of being unprofessional, of abandoning the band. But others saw it differently. They called it brave. Because for Richie, it wasn't just about walking away from Bon Jovi. It was about walking toward his daughter. He didn't want applause. He didn't want headlines. He just wanted to be present. And now, over a decade later, he's finally clearing the air. He admits, yes, the band became toxic. Yes, he felt unappreciated. And yes, he left to save himself before there was nothing left to save. So next time you hear Living on a Prayer, or Wanted Dead or Alive, remember the man behind the strings, the soul that gave those songs heart. Richie Sambora didn't quit on the music. He walked away from a machine that forgot he was human. And in the end, maybe that's the most rock and roll thing he ever did. In hindsight, Richie Sambora's so-called walkout wasn't some impulsive rock star meltdown. It was personal, thought out, necessary. More than a decade later, he stands by it, not as quitting music, but as refusing to quit on his daughter. Sambora says the greatest thing he's done isn't on a stage. It's the bond he built with Ava. He shares how proud he is, how close they are, how she's grown into a creative, educated, grounded woman. His decision may have shocked fans and changed the course of Bon Jovi forever, but Richie never looked back. "I can play guitar forever," he said, "but I only get one chance to be her dad." That goodbye didn't come with fireworks or a farewell tour, just the silence and distance, but it said everything. After Sambora suddenly left the band in 2013, both he and Jon Bon Jovi stayed quiet. No press wars, no public drama, just vague mentions of personal reasons. But insiders knew this wasn't a new crack. It was years in the making. Behind closed doors, tensions had been rising. Sambora, once a key force behind the band's biggest hits, was slowly being pushed aside. Decision-making grew one-sided. Creative sessions felt cold. He later admitted it felt like he'd gone from partner to hired gun. The band stopped feeling like a band and started to feel like a machine. In a 2024 interview, Sambora said it bluntly. It stopped feeling like a band. It felt like a corporation. And yet, for years, he said nothing. He bottled it up, carried it in silence. When he did finally speak, his words carried weight. He described it as emotionally draining, creatively toxic, not a blow-up, but a slow, painful breakdown. No closure, just a void. Meanwhile, Jon stayed diplomatic. He acknowledged the difficulty, but avoided details. No name-calling, no public bitterness. But fans never forgot the silence. How could one of rock's most iconic duos just fade out with no explanation? In 2024, Sambora finally broke that silence. In emotional interviews with Yahoo and the New York Post, he offered an honest apology not just to fans, but to Jon Bon Jovi himself. "I just disappeared, man," he said. "I ghosted." He admitted he handled it wrong, that he should have had a real conversation, that Jon deserved that. But he also explained why it happened. Years of frustration, of feeling unheard, of being left out of the band he helped build. He wasn't trying to hurt anyone. He was trying to save himself. It wasn't one fight, he said. It was years of feeling creatively shut out. And then fatherhood came first. His words humanized what had once been a mystery. For years, rumors swirled. But this time, fans saw the man behind the silence. A father, a musician, a man at his limit. Jon Bon Jovi didn't publicly respond. Not directly. He kept things professional. He said a reunion wasn't likely. But there was no anger in his tone. Just a kind of quiet closure. And for Sambora, that was enough. He finally closed a chapter that had been left open far too long. Richie's apology made fans dream again. Could a reunion happen? But Jon Bon Jovi was clear. He appreciated the honesty, but the past was the past. "We had our run," he told the Sunday Times. "It wasn't cold. It wasn't bitter. It was simply final." These days, Jon's been facing challenges of his own. After a serious health scare left his vocal cords damaged, he's been recovering slowly, quietly. The voice that once filled arenas might never fully return. And that's changed everything. There's no rush to prove anything anymore. No chase for former glory. Just gratitude for what still remains. And maybe that's the real story here. Two legends, walking different paths, finally finding peace. One found his voice again. The other finally let us go. When Richie Sambora walked away from Bon Jovi in 2013, fans were stunned. No warning, no press tour, no final bow, just gone. But now, over a decade later, he's breaking his silence, revealing the heartbreaking truth behind his exit and the apology he waited 10 years to say. This isn't just a story about a band. It's about broken friendships, fame's heavy cost, and a father's love that changed everything. Stay with us, because the truth hits harder than any guitar solo ever could. In 2013, Richie Sambora didn't just leave a tour, he left a legacy behind. For years, people thought it was sudden, maybe even selfish. But according to Richie, it was anything but impulsive. He didn't walk away from music. He walked towards something more important, his daughter, Ava. Now, looking back, he says, "I only get one chance to be her dad." While fans begged for answers, he stayed silent. No interviews, no shade, just silence. But that silence said a lot. Behind the scenes, the bond between Richie and Jon Bon Jovi was already cracking. Creative differences, emotional distance, a friendship slowly unraveling. Richie, once a driving force in the band, said he started to feel like a hired gun, cut out of decisions, left behind in the studio, and dismissed creatively. It stopped feeling like a band, he later admitted, and started feeling like a corporation. The brotherhood they once had, gone. And so, with a quiet exit, Richie left not just a stage, but a piece of himself behind. In 2024, the truth finally surfaced. In a raw, emotional interview, Richie Sambora spoke the words fans had waited years to hear. "I ghosted," he said. "I just disappeared." He admitted it. He should have talked to Jon. He should have explained. But back then, he didn't have the words. He wasn't just leaving a tour. He was escaping something toxic. He described feeling unheard, unimportant, creatively drained. The decision to walk away wasn't fueled by ego. It was survival. For the first time, Richie apologized not just to Jon, but to the fans, the ones who stood by him, the ones who never got closure. It was a moment of reckoning, and one that changed how the world viewed his exit. Suddenly, it wasn't betrayal. It was bravery. Jon Bon Jovi didn't respond directly. He remained respectful, quiet, but his silence spoke too. He had already moved on. For years, fans dreamed of a reunion. Sambora and Bon Jovi, back on stage like old times. But as of now, that dream remains just that. A dream. A lot has changed. Musically, emotionally, physically. Richie now writes softer, blues-inspired music. Jon, after a serious vocal cord injury, is more careful, more reflective. The high-energy shows of the 80s, they're just not realistic anymore. Even if they could reunite, should they? Producer Bob Rock put it best. Some reunions work. Others collapse under the weight of what they used to be. Trying to bring back the past might only prove how far things have changed. Richie has said he's careful now. No more tours that drain him. No more chasing what's gone. He's focused on peace, on his daughter, on creating music for joy, not for charts. And Jon, he said it clearly. "I'm not interested in being a tribute act to myself." He's not angry. He's just done. And that's not cold. That's growth. Richie Sambora may have left Bon Jovi, but he never left the music. He still writes, still plays, still performs, just on his own terms. He's proud of Ava, now a rising star herself. He's spoken openly about therapy, healing, and reclaiming his identity, not as a rock star, but as a man. He's not chasing arenas anymore. He's chasing authenticity. And fans? They've embraced him even more for it. Because Richie didn't just help build Bon Jovi's sound. He gave it soul. His riffs, his harmonies, his heart. It's all still there in every song we still sing. He may have ghosted, but he's not forgotten. His story is proof that real legacy isn't about holding on to the spotlight. It's about knowing when to let go and what to hold on to instead. If Richie Sambora's journey hit home for you, like it did for us, don't forget to like this video and drop a comment. What's your favorite Bon Jovi song? Or your favorite Sambora solo moment? And if you haven't already, Subscribe for more untold stories from the legends of rock. Click the next video on your screen and keep the music and the memories alive.